Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the virtual discourse session brought to you by UOW Malaysia KDU School of Business here. I'm Dr. Brian. Today, the topic on SME Survival Kit is focusing on finance and you. So let's learn a bit about the financial management or financial planning perspective from our two very distinguished industry panelists, which I'll introduce to you all shortly. Okay, so let me introduce a bit about who we are. UOW Malaysia KDU. UOW stands for University of Wollongong, Australia, and now KDU is part of the UOW Global Network. Yeah. So are we really new? No, we are not new. In fact, KDU is already in the industry for about 36 years. Okay, and we are among the pioneer in private higher education as well. And so far, we have 4 campuses in Malaysia, 2 in Klang Valley, 1 is in Damansara Jaya, and 1 is Utropolis Glen Mary Shah Alam. And we have 2 more campuses up north in the Penang, 1 in the island side, Georgetown, and another 1 in Batu Kawan on the mainland side. Yeah. And as explained just now, now KDU is part of the UOW Global Network, which means also our students and our faculty members have direct access to all the UOW campuses and expertise as well, whether it's in Australia, in Dubai, or in Hong Kong, and of course now we have it in Malaysia as well. Yeah. A little bit brief of the session that we have today. So today, this session specifically will be focusing on the survival tips for SMEs within the limited financial resources available to them during these challenging times while staying true to their business purpose. Yeah. So we know the economic situation and COVID-19 issue has impacted a lot of businesses, including SMEs. So let's learn how can SMEs survive through financial management from our 2 panelists shortly. Yeah. Okay, just to let you know first, this session will be recorded for the benefit of our participants here if you want to review the discussion later on, or for those who have registered but couldn't attend the session for this evening, they also can review this session as well. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So next, I would like to give you a little bit brief of the issue that we are facing now. Yeah, we know what happens to coronavirus issue back in the late last year, okay, in December, where we started to know the spread of coronavirus in China itself, and the first death was reported back in China in January 11th, and all the way to February 14th, started to have more and more cases being reported in terms of death. Yeah, in Malaysia, the first MCO or movement control order started back on the 18th of March 2020, and now we are into the 4th phase, which is looking into hopefully to be lifted by 12th of May 2020. Yeah, just a bit of background of what happens here in Malaysia and the impact on SMEs in Malaysia. A little bit background I give as well. As reported in the Star back on the 9th of March 2020, the manufacturers gloomy on outlook as COVID-19 waves, yeah, as a lot of manufacturers could not actually operate on a full scale, or either they are being affected by the supply chain from overseas as well. Things are not that good, basically, yeah. And just 2 days ago, another news came out from the SME Association of Malaysia, talking about the most SMEs are running out of cash now, which is excellent thing that we want to discuss today on finance and you itself, right? And specifically to the retail sector, huge impact on the retail sector as people cannot go out of their home to do shopping. Yeah, of course, we can talk about online shopping now, but the retail industry is reported or expected to shrink by 5.5% this year, as reported in Focus Malaysia, and that's exactly how it reshaped local retail industry itself. Yeah. Besides the retail sector, we also know very clearly airlines and tourism sector, hotel industry are among the most hard-hit sector in this particular difficult situation. Okay, and therefore, the Bank Negara Malaysia earlier on has reported the revision of the Malaysia's economic growth to be only between -2% to 0.5%, yeah, mainly due to the output loss from COVID-19, MCO condition, as well as commodity supply disruptions around the world itself. And therefore, in Malaysia, the Malaysian government has actually introduced the Malaysian Economic Stimulus Package. The first one, in fact, was back on the 27th of February 2020, where the then interim Prime Minister, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, has announced a 20 billion ringgit of stimulus package. And a month later, the current Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin announced the Malaysia Prihatin Economic Stimulus Package of that worth about 250 billion ringgit. And 10 days later, he announced the additional Prihatin Economic Stimulus Package for SMEs specifically that worth about 10 billion ringgit Malaysia. Okay, just to have everybody on the same chat room here, on the same board, basically, this session has adopted the definition of SME from the SME Association of Malaysia, separated into two categories, the manufacturing as well as services and other sectors. Yeah, so these are the generic definition according to SME Association of Malaysia, just for you to understand. Okay. So based on the stimulus packages that the Malaysian government has introduced, literally they are looking into opportunity to reform the necessary and to secure stronger growth in the coming quarters. Yeah, and particularly there are two areas looking at. The first is in terms of digital future, which one of the topic that we discussed last Thursday on the digital story strategies, and specifically today we are looking into the finance and you topic. Yeah, and in particular to quality investment. Okay. So this is just a little bit background for everybody in terms of the COVID-19 issue as well as the MCO condition and the slightly discussion on the impact of the SMEs in Malaysia. So next, I would like to invite our panelists to provide their views in specific to this particular matter. So the first one I would like to introduce, let Dato Ong to provide his tips first. Dato Ong, please.
Thanks, Dr. Brian. Yeah, I think we all know the impact of COVID-19, not just in Malaysia, but globally. And I think most of us, since we are confined to our homes, have been fed lots of news flow from all over the world. And that's one of the great things about the internet, that while we are kept inside our home, we can still get a lot of information and share it with everyone. I think I wanted to just use 5 simple slides because I know there are students here. There are also business people who are quite interested to know what should we do if you haven't already got your own plans in mind over the last maybe 6 weeks of the MCO. The reality is that there are basically not many things that are available in terms of options. You just got to do all these things. So I've broken them down to 5 of these items so that you can remember them. One is that the government has actually made available many things for the business people. So in particular, I think we should always look at the relief fund. That's 5 billion of that. And I believe that if eventually this 5 billion is used up, and this is just one of them, that the government will probably consider increasing this. I think more than happy to help businessmen if indeed there is demand. So what we understand is that there are already many applications and the banks are all processing it very diligently. And that's why I think you should, as a businessman, make use of these funds. Contact your bank that you have maintained your accounts with and go for it. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. Okay? Secondly is I think you have to look at a way to find a way to reduce your cash outflows. Just before this session in the afternoon, I also had a session with an entity whom is involved in training, the Asian Banking School. We also talk about how to manage costs better, whether it's employees, whether it's our landlord, is there a way we can negotiate for better rentals and all this. So try as much as you can to focus on whether they can be understanding. I think if you read in the papers today, there were even talks of introducing COVID-19 laws on contracts and all that. There's been already introduced in Singapore, meaning that if anybody has things that be frustrated by this COVID-19, you can make use of the law. This is that's gaining a lot of traction among business people as well as the Bar Council of Malaysia. Okay. Now, number three is obviously your most important asset. You need to keep on communicating with them, because you may have a lot of employees that are not in the office and you don't have the ability to connect with them on a physical basis. So you don't really know what is happening to them. Some of them, if they're working from home, they may have connectivity issues. They could be very frustrated. They don't have that connectivity with their customers and their colleagues. So they could be quite demotivated, besides worried about the outlook. So this is an opportunity to find new ways to be able to reskill them. Even like OCBC, we used to have 100% of people work in the office. Right now, we are 65% working at home. Imagine that, we have about almost 6,000 workers, and now 2/3 of them are working at home. The rest of them are serving our frontline in the branches and in all our various centers, attending to calls and all that. But we can really make a quick transition. And after this, post-crisis, what do? Can we give employees opportunity to work from home? And many of you know that we have a lot of women folk who are in the workforce. They may have things that they need to do at home. So the ability to work from home is something definitely we will also explore, and we should also do that for our staff. But important is to keep your staff motivated, because if you do not do that, you'll find that they remember what you did do and didn't do. Now, second, the fourth point is, as you talk to banks, talk to your business partners and associates, they also would want to know exactly what will happen. Even assuming you want to apply for a loan, the banks will also be asking you, what is your forecast? So you should also spend more time on this. Now, it's not that easy to plan in this kind of murky outlook, but I think it's something to come up with certain assumptions is very important. So I think this is where perhaps when you are not able to really attend to business, you spend more time on planning the finances. And sometimes this is where forums and all these opportunities that many organizations are now organizing. There are so many webinars and that are around that you can learn from. And these are all mostly free, like this one as well, this particular one. Finally, if I got that time, to just look at your business model. We found that many things have to be relooked after this so-called reset period in our time. Because again, like I go back to the meeting that I had with the Asian Banking School. We have been very successful on a classroom model. While we've built online training, we've leveraged mainly on a classroom. Now with this, going forward, we have to change the model. So really, you have to look at whether you're a manufacturer or retailer, you have to have some leveraging on technology to make yourself more efficient and more reachable by your customers. So basically, these are the 5 very important things that you must focus on to ensure your survival. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dato. Yeah, we will leave the questions for you shortly. Okay. So I'll pass on to Razif first for your thoughts. Razif, please.
Okay, I think Dato didn't leave much for me. But okay. So that's all right. That's all right. Perhaps the little bits that I can add, I suppose, would be the actions you should be taking. And I speak from the relative comfort of being in an agency that provides funding. So I don't. I can only empathize with the entrepreneurs out there that are impacted negatively by COVID-19. So, but among the things, I mean, we've been talking about this a lot over the past several weeks, and I've been in a few webinars, and I think among the things that you should be looking at, I suppose, would be to look at your supplier and customer networks, see how they are affected, and I believe that some of these networks are continuing to be impacted. There are ripple effects that we do not completely understand right now, or has not completely shown or borne itself out to the full at this point in time. So as this MCO gets extended further, there will be further impacts down the line in terms of what worked for a while, and then after a certain amount of time stops working. So the ability to monitor and have a good visibility of your supply and customer networks will be crucial. This includes end-to-end supply chain. You need to have some sort of assessment in terms of how resilient is the supply chain. I've seen, in my case, who I deal with are startups. They're not necessarily SMEs in that sense. There are those who can continue to operate, but then although they can sell, they might not be able to deliver or fulfill orders, for example, because of other issues down the line. So being able to understand the supply chain, the risks that are impacting on your supply chain, and thinking on how to make it more resilient, meaning multiple suppliers, perhaps multiple delivery services. So in case one stops working, you can shift quickly from one to the other. This I suppose from an academic point of view, I do note that this is in a way some form academic, but it helps to have some sort of plannings, either contingency or scenario planning. What if this doesn't? What if? So keep asking yourselves in terms of having that full network in front of you. What if this fails? What if that fails? What if COVID, the MCO is extended right up into June, for example? Will those networks still be there? So having that kind of mindset or thinking process. I already spoke about supplier network diversification. So in case one fails, you have another. And then, yeah, Dato mentioned the stimulus and incentive packages. Do you have all the information? Have you read the packages, the text of it, which are available? If you Google it, it's out there, it's public. And have you looked at all the possibilities, from tax, financing, moratorium stuff, and then of course things that you can do yourself, like cutting costs, operating costs, speaking to your landlord, speaking to your service providers, etc. And I believe that, given that the pervasiveness of this problem, everybody is in it, that everybody will, you don't have to justify, people know. So it becomes more a case of making a case for, look, we're all in this together. You need me as much as I need you. Why don't we help each other out and keep everybody afloat, as opposed to you lose me, and then eventually, even if you survive, you may not have customers after a month, 2 months down the road. My understanding is the startup community is looking at an average of 2 to 4 months runway. They will run out of money in 4 months, something like that.
Okay.
Some are better off, of course, but that's apparently the average. So, and one final point, I think Dato also mentioned about the business model. I think not only tweak the business model, but maybe rethink it, completely rethink it. One thing about the startups that I work with, they are pretty resourceful bunch. some of them, they are doing online event management, suddenly now selling food, you know, because when they did event management, they also had networks with F&B players who are part of the event management sort of ecosystem. So he decided to flip it around. Why don't I, sell food and deliver it to your doorstep? So that particular startup has managed to keep afloat somewhat. Of course, it's not ideal, but everybody is doing everything they can. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay. So when Razif actually talks about startups, right? So you were talking about startups. In fact, I have a question to really ask. There's the business model and the business thinking of startup companies as compared to the traditional businesses, right? It's quite different, basically. Yeah, and obviously we can expect them to have a better adaptability. Just like you said just now, somebody who might be running an online event management company, they can easily switch to food delivery, for example, right? Food industry, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that probably is the benefit of what you talk about, how companies is able to have a diversified supplier network, or perhaps a customers network that can link from A to B to C and all the way to Z, for example. Yeah, they just need to pick and choose which is the right strategy for them. So that's an excellent advice, I think, for the SMEs to really consider how they should, and survive in the longer run itself. Yeah, and Dato also talk about one of the point that Dato mentioned about the SME should have spend some time to look into their short-term financial plan and the business forecast. Yeah. Okay. What happened was on last Thursday when we had these on the digital marketing topic, there were actually some questions asked by SMEs owners. If I do not know how to draft my marketing plan, what can I do? Yeah. So I would assume that if there are SMEs that couldn't, they really have no idea how to draft a marketing plan, they may also not have an idea how to draft a financial plan. Yeah. So what is your suggestion to these SME owners if they really have no idea how to draft a short-term financial plan, or how to think about the business forecast in the next few months? What they think is only about can I survive, can I survive, can I survive? Yeah, the only thing that they look at now is only the cash flow. Yeah, and they forgot that there's a bigger picture for them to think about, to look at, in order for them to survive, not just about cash flow itself, right? So what is your thought on that, Dato?
Yeah, I understand the predicament, and frankly, I would say that majority of businessmen today, especially when there's still this lockdown where it's not been fully uplifted, their main concern is how to live day by day, how to keep their employees, and all that. So they're not thinking about such a long-term plan. But whether you like it or not, there will come a time when this situation will come a pass, and you do need to plan ahead. Now, I mentioned about the 5 points. So the 5 points obviously have some priority for all different businessmen, depending on their situation. I would say that tapping on whatever funds that are available, and whether it's from government and all the reliefs that has been given to businessmen, those are the things that you must prioritize your effort on. So sometimes there's so many announcements that sometimes businessmen also do not know which one to go to and how to apply for it. Even applying for the special relief funds, I've had customers who had difficulty, or they feel that the banks were taking too long. Secondly, will be actually managing your cash outflow so that you can preserve your cash. But what the banks have done, working with Bank Negara, is to give that automatic moratorium. And that's given a great breather. That means for April, May, June, July, to up to September, there's nothing that you need to pay. No interest, nothing. So, and your secrets record will be in good shape. They will not affect your secrets records. So this is a time for you to really think how to reshape your business. It gives you, take you away from the distraction of having to pay your bank lah, basically lah.
Mm.
It's something that is unprecedented. It never happened in all the financial crises that I've gone through in the last 31 years, but this is where the government has actually done that for business people and also for consumer. The only thing is that it's just 6 months can pass very fast, and if you don't plan properly, the problem will start to surface again. Imagine you have 6 months of relief, and then you are lucky enough to apply for a loan from the relief fund. That fund, after 6 months, also you have to start paying.
Mm.
So you have to have some way of being able to make good of all these things. So that's why I said that you do need to have some plan, at least to how to manage the business. In fact, also just before this meeting, I was having a discussion with another of our customers internally that their business is manufacturing. They've been asked to shut down. They are indirect exporter. So they have not been allowed to open yet. So literally for the last 2 months, they actually have no cash flow because they can't even produce. So the thing is, we told them that your loan will probably need to be restructured, but we can't just give you a 6 months moratorium and then after 6 months, what happens?
Mm.
So to give that to everybody is that you during this 6 months, you must work on some kind of financial plan. Now, the question is, like you say, if I'm a businessman, a small SME, I don't know where to go to. Obviously, there's quite a number of companies now are using this opportunity to reach out to them. One of them that we've been partnering very closely is YYC. It's an accounting firm, Chinese based accounting firm, and they have they're very focused on SME. They have about almost 1,000 employees, and their business is actually to help SMEs grow and manage the cash flow. So previously, it was a lot of their work is involving how to support a company when it's growing and managing their cash flow. They will always try to help companies who grow too fast, who need to how to manage when they're growing fast. Now it's the other way around, how to manage cash flow when business is on the downturn. So these are the people that you can reach out to. YYC, which we are one of their partner, we partnered together with them to do this. So they are more than happy to sort of spend time to teach you. You can even attend some of their courses, which are also nowadays online, where you can do that. So this is where you can hone your skills. I would say that this is something that you have no choice but to learn something like this. Maybe in the past you don't have to, but going forward, it's something that you force yourself to learn.
Yeah. That's it's truly right here. Basically, it's really a new norm now. Yeah, whether you like it or not, right? And it's a time for you to unlearn and relearn again everything. Yeah, it doesn't mean that whatever you have done previously is you know that. It doesn't mean that you can do it now. The condition is totally different. We have a question here from Arif Azri. Yeah, it's questions on business model. There are some companies who don't have the adaptation to the current situation, probably. Yeah. How do you suggest them to rethink their business model? Yeah. So if they cannot adapt to the current situation, what can they do in order for them to rethink their business model? Razif, you have any thought on this?
Okay, that's a good question actually. They when that comes up in my contact in the space I'm in, the usual answer is those who can pivot have already pivoted. Basically, those who have the means or who have the necessary infrastructure or the necessary networks, they already see the opportunities that they can tap under this current situation. So, as you know, the only things that are moving today are things like basic goods, basic needs, and probably stuff that relating to entertainment in the home, which means if you don't have anything in that space at all, you're kind of going to be affected, a bit more than everybody else.
Mm.
The other thing is, if you are in a business model that requires some physical, or at least the actual substantive part is physical interaction, then I will have to say that is a bit more difficult to do. So I guess in a situation like that, you have to somehow hunker down and wait for the MCO to either be modified to allow for some physical movement or interaction at some point, which it will. So it is not forever, but it will come soon, I guess. But we just don't know when the government will make that decision. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any clear answer. I mean, I think I've been in a few webinars. I've seen webinars actually skirt the whole topic, you know, where people say, and they keep saying, "Oh, if you can pivot, pivot." But you're thinking about, what about those guys say it's online, right? But it is basically like Uberizing a service provider like plumbers, electricians
Yep.
to people who need them. Yeah, you can still click, click, click. I want this, I want that, and my aircon isn't working right now. But the guy can't move. The guy can't just drive around. I guess he can, but illegally. But that's not something you want to base your business model on, or your whole entire business on. So it becomes problematic. And we've seen this. We've tried our part in terms of talking to the government, but the problem is, I guess at the end of the day, it becomes a balance between safety, health of the people. It's not just those guys going fixing your things. It's the guy, him, his family, who he comes into contact with, etc. So the government has had to make these tough choices. So I think, unfortunately, I don't have a clear answer for that, other than you probably need other options. Basically, what we call in the startup world cockroach mode. Cockroach mode, where, as you know, cockroaches are the last things that will probably survive a nuclear attack and all that. It's basically it's an extreme survival mode where you sort of like hunker down and try and just weather this time, and then hopefully it comes sooner rather than later. But I must apologize. I don't have a clear answer for that. I've been in a few webinars, and nobody has had an answer for that. Actually, it's for those that have business models that require physical interaction. If you fall within an essential service, then that's fine. You see, so physical interaction is required, but it's an essential service. Yeah, fine. You can go to work in a manufacturing plant, for example, for an essential good. But beyond that, if you're, say, gig economy guys, things like that, barbers, how do you do that, right? Unless you have a robotic a barber running your shop, you know. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm. My apologies. My
So,
apologies.
so Arif was asking, so is it either too late or just enough to survive then, in that case?
Um, we're speaking with, I mean, the benefit of hindsight right now. So it's easy to say. I guess moving forward, you'll have to think about how you address that. Maybe automate or something like that.
Mm.
I mean, I haven't had a TNB meter reader come over. I think like a month plus already. No one's
Yeah.
given me the bill, right?
Yes.
So TNB could make that investment if they wanted to, but it would be a big one where they, smart meters where they can remotely monitor your meters or readings. But that is TNB. But for people like barbers and the hair salon guys, how?
Yeah.
So I think this is what they say. What they mean by the world will change after this. I don't know. Maybe there will be less barbers after this, or less hair salons. I don't know. But it is still an essential good in that sense. because not everybody knows how to cut their hair. But I don't know. I'm being philosophical already, so I
Yeah.
don't have anything positive or anything useful to say other than I think it's time to hunker down for those guys
Okay.
and try and survive this period. And I believe it will end. It's just that you have to make that dollar stretch further, lah.
I see. Okay. Dato, you have anything to add on to this question about?
I do
Yeah.
agree with Razif in the sense that if you are in some of those businesses where the government has not lifted this, there's really nothing you can really do, you know.
Mm.
But being an optimist, because bankers have to be optimistic, otherwise
True.
we will not be giving money at all. We'll close shop.
Yeah.
That I think we believe this is a winter season, and animals do go and hibernate during this time. They move around less so that they can conserve cash. So I think this period will slowly abate. But the question is whether it goes back to the old situation, the old arrangements, like for instance, restaurants, hotels. Will they have a huge congregation of people? Maybe they will have to manage it and transition the kind of movement where social distancing becomes a norm until the virus is totally eliminated. And obviously, a lot of concern is whether it will reappear again in a different form. So I think during this time, certain businesses need to just slow down a little bit. Now, the other thing is that, I mean, people may not like to hear what I'm saying is that many businesses that have actually shared with us that it's so hyper competitive right now as an SME. And I think sometimes when you have such a situation, it's where the fittest survive. And those who can survive, they will do better. Let's say, for instance, you operate in one place where there are 10, 20 restaurants in the same row of shop houses. Now, if you are fit, then the rest, the other five are not. When the crisis is over, you'll be able to survive. And clearly, this is something that I believe will happen. Some SMEs, after the 6 months moratorium, they may not open shop again. That's a fact. In fact, the banks already planned for this because we what we call the cliff effect. While we give this reprieve for businesses, we do not know whether some people will take advantage and just close shop and run out somewhere. Things like that. This will happen because not everybody will go back to normal. And those who can come back, they could emerge stronger because there's less competition. And that's the reality of the business world.
I see. So, Dato, just based on what you have explained just now, right? Especially when you talk about whether there are certain criteria probably for you all to evaluate or assess whether certain SMEs can be assisted or not, for example, right? So there's this question asked by Yue Ping here. Banks are offering financial relief to help loan borrowers cope during COVID-19. Majority business were somehow hit by the impact. How does a bank decide whether to help the said businesses or not? Is the bank compulsory to help them or can turn them down?
Okay, banks will evaluate on a case-to-case basis, but generally, banks are on the move to actually help customers. So even like moratorium, so long as the customer is not already an NPL customer, we can assist the customer. He could be 2 months in arrears, but we can help. So the bank is at the moment and the regulator are in the mood to help. So the chances is that the banks will actually want to help customers. Now,
Okay.
obviously, the customers that maybe will not be able to get their loans approved will be those who are already having a very negative track record already. That means they already were doing badly. Then that could be a problem. we have some customers who actually are already on negative net worth, for instance, their business is in deficit. So sometimes it may be something that is not possible. But by and large, we've been, as far as I know, the banking industry has been approving a lot more loans than they are rejecting.
Okay. Okay. I'm actually just reading a news here, saying that Bank Negara Malaysia is expected to slash key rate by 50 basis point again, yeah, on the pandemic worries, yeah, which means that it's going to have a cheaper loans, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, there is a MPC meeting
Yeah.
in a few days' time. We do not know. I think there are many things to weigh for the Bank Negara. They have done many things for the customers. Of course, interest rate is a very easy way to help further to generate the good news. The
Right.
question is whether Bank Negara would want to reserve their so-called bullets because right now you're in a moratorium period.
Okay.
So whether interest rate is high or low, the
Doesn't
customer
matter.
doesn't really
Yeah, doesn't
So
matter. Yeah.
they could want to reserve the bullets.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
we have a question here from Gabriel. Yeah, talking about, recently we have heard some news of certain hotels are closing down. Yeah, in the hospitality industry is one of the hard-hit industry due to COVID-19. Do you think that this kind of action is a bit too early, because we are talking about less than 2 months of MCO, and literally business already can forecast that they are having cash flow problem, yeah, and they can't survive in the next 6 months, for example, and therefore they decided to close down. Another sector was the media industry as well. Yeah, there are a few media industry companies also announced of close down now. Razif, do you think this hospitality industry is a bit too early to actually withdraw from the industry?
Um, not really my area.
Okay.
We do have a few who are in the hospitality industry, in tech startups. Famously, Turistly, which became VD, that was bought out by AirAsia, I think.
Right.
Was a Cradle, linked to Cradle, but they're not hotels. So I would say, being not an expert, I guess, in this area, I will say this. I think these are the local guys. They're not part of a franchise or chain. I'm assuming they may not have the deep sort of like networks or expertise that the bigger chains will have. So they are probably also the hotels which were already at risk even before COVID-19, perhaps. So they were already sort of like marginal in that sense. So that's one thing I can say that. The second thing is, I will say that the hospitality industry will be one of those which will probably experience lasting impact beyond MCO. So not beyond COVID, but beyond MCO. As soon as MCO is lifted, I think there will be lingering concerns among people to travel, for example, to even stay in hotels. Perhaps I don't want to sort of like say it and then it becomes true, but yeah, but that's what a lot of people are writing, and I personally, as a consumer myself, probably will. I'm already thinking. I think I'm going to hold off on the holidays for a while,
Yeah.
and see how it goes. So I think that those are my comments. I think the hospitality industry, especially the hotels, have airlines, for example, the tour guys and all that, have to really think hard about. This MCO thing is going to be lifted at some point. So if you have enough resources, you're going to survive the MCO. You should already be thinking about the time when it starts to lift, right? So you are preparing already. You're ready to go. So what is it that you can do to bring customers back? So I think it will be a case of you have to build trust and confidence among consumers, to want to be on a tour bus, to want to be on a plane, for example. I hear, was it Qatar or Emirates? They're doing pre-flight, they're doing blood tests and stuff like that, right? I read articles, and these, I mean, that's an example of an airline taking active steps to win back confidence. You know, it's almost like I'm going to sanitize the plane for you. You know, I will make a big story about how I've installed special sanitization equipment that Boeing developed. I developed with Boeing or something like that, and I've installed it in all my planes, fast track, to get people to feel confident. And then they will say the seating arrangement is social distance compliant, so, you know, those kind of things. So I think hotels need to think the same way in terms of how do you get people to want to use their rooms. The last thing I will say is I'm like a pessimist kind of, so I can't be a banker, I guess. Dato. Sorry. I'm a kind of pessimist. I'm risk averse, so I'm not an entrepreneur. My wife is, but I'm not. So I think you'd have to really convince me in terms of how to, you know, I need to buy that ticket and go to Phuket. I was going to say that last thing. The last thing is they're saying the consumer sentiment in Europe and US is expected to be low, but apparently in China it's more positive or more optimistic. So it could be that we Asians, after being cooped up for so many days in our houses, the minute the MCO lifts, there's sudden like boom, everybody wants to go on holiday already. I feel like I want to go on holiday. I just am a pessimist, so I don't. But then there might be more optimistic guys around me who will, you know, let's go on a holiday. Don't you want to? I think a lot of people would like to go on a holiday after this, you know? Just go somewhere and relax and, you know, leave all these problems behind. So to go either way, you see. So I think the key takeaway is I think the hospitality guys need to be prepared for that. Either way it goes, you need to be prepared. Either to bring people back in, or that potential optimistic crowd that will want to, you know, stay in your hotels, go travel again, you know?
Right.
I don't know, I guess.
Okay. Dato, RHB has recently reported to have approved about 500 million ringgit of this relief fund, to about almost 100 SMEs. What about OCBC? How much roughly have OCBC has approved? And are these include F&B companies, hotels, or hospitality industry people as well?
It's all across from retail, wholesale trade to manufacturing companies. So
Okay.
obviously we try to avoid the limelight because we are a foreign bank. So our figures are actually slightly lower than RHB because they are a much bigger bank than us. But we are approving on average about almost 20 million of these relief funds. And if you look at some of the data with Bank Negara, the amount of 5 billion will soon be reached. So clearly there is a lot of demand, and all the banks are doing their best to approve this loan because it is a very attractive fund. It's only 3.5% interest rate, very, very low and very, very attractive. So I hope that Bank Negara would consider increasing this once the limit has been reached, because there's a lot of demand. If I could just say something about the hotel industry, because
please.
I think some people tend to take this news and become very pessimistic. So you see, the hotel industry, the most is a capex heavy business. So a hotel closing down is just shutting the business. It's not going to close down and knock down the building and all that. They are what we call hibernating, because a hotel requires a certain occupancy to break even, to cover the cost of the variable cost, electricity, everything. So if you look at the KL hotel industry, it was hovering around 70 to 80% occupancy. So that's okay for many hotels. But once you have this control, people from overseas cannot travel here and restricted travel within the interstate, and businesses are all locked down, occupancy literally can go down to 5-10% or zero. So at that point in time, it doesn't make any sense to keep the hotel running. So if you look at some of the information out there, some of the hotel operators that decided to shut down, they are actually financially very strong, but they took that decision to shut down to conserve cash. So it's not that they'll never open again. I'm very sure like people like Plenitude, they will open again because their hotel is in, one of their hotels is in Gurney Drive in Penang. So it's a very popular place. But they are also trying to refurbish their building, you know, that old hotel. Maybe they will take the opportunity to accelerate that. So I'm not so worried about that. But I believe that most of them are so-called hibernating during this period. Yeah.
I see. So that also brings another question by Jonathan Sheikh here. He asked about many companies are pulling out, and lately, including BBDO, have announced that they are shutting down in Malaysia and downsizing their operations in Hong Kong. Why do you think companies as big as BBDO or Esprit, for example, which they have more than enough resources, but yet they're also taking this measure? Is it because, like what Dato mentioned, it's really for them just to conserve their bullets at this point of time, and they will make a comeback later, or what do you think about that?
Okay, there are two things that could happen to a business, because generally you find that a business tends to have some inertia to do something because they are big. Like for instance, some of the companies that they mentioned that they've been in Malaysia for 50 years, suddenly they decide to close. So I think it could be a situation where they've been exploring, but they've been putting it off. But when the crunch comes, it is the so-called the hair that breaks the camel's back. So it's sort of a decision that you have put off for a long time, and because of this crisis, you decide to do it, and you're going to do it, and it is monumental. So I wouldn't. It's a bit so-called confidence busting. You can say that some people, because of this, they worry. But I was talking to people in Penang where some of these factories have operations. There are other so-called factories that are looking for staff. So this will hopefully be absorbed by this other industry. As you know, garment industry is, I would say, in a way, for Malaysia, where our cost is high, it's not the most attractive compared to other places like Cambodia, Sri Lanka, and all that. So, frankly, we cannot really compete with them. But probably because of sentimental reasons, these people have been operating here for so long, they decided to stay on. But their staff, I think, if they are willing to reskill and all that, they can be absorbed in the other industries. So that's the part of the evolution.
Right. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Again, this is the session on a SME survival kit, focusing on finance and you, brought to you by UOW Malaysia KDU School of Business here. We only have about 10 minutes time to wrap up this session. So I'm going to take only probably two more questions here for our panelists to address to you. Okay. There's this one question specifically for Razif. Yeah. So the question here, since you mentioned you are pessimist, then how are fundings approved by you? What do they have to do or show, or what do you want to see in order to get the funding from Cradle Fund? Yeah.
Okay. Now making me pay for saying that. Okay. First of all, our last grant program just closed. So presently, we're not approving any new grants at this point in time. Our new grant programs will only be launched late in Q2, so end of May probably. So there are fresh funds. We have not run out of money. There are fresh funds. It's just that we've come up with new grant programs for 2020 because if you remember 2019, we put under Mestec, and then now it's MOSTI. So there is a focus on STI, science, technology, and innovation. So that already probably gives you an idea where we're looking as well.
Mm.
I will say two things. First, if it was existing guys, say tomorrow there will be an aid package designed specifically for startups announced by the government. In fact, it was hinted already by my minister YB Khairi that there will be something for startups that they're working on. So
Okay.
if that is announced, probably I don't know when. I don't have that information actually, but if that was announced, I will have to look hard at my current portfolio of companies, the companies that receive our funding, and decide very quickly in terms of who should receive that funding or who should, get the funding, because it will likely be limited. So in that context, I'll be looking at a few things. Things like the runway of the company, the
Mm.
cash runway. Second, I'll be looking at things like the team, how strong the team are in terms of performance, how they have demonstrated to them that they are able to execute the business plan that they say they're going to do. And finally, the most critical, probably as critical or more critical, will be what sector they are in terms
Mm.
of there will be an assessment in terms of whether that sector is capable of bouncing back within, say, 3 months, 6 months. The shorter the period of time, the more likely that a company like that would be able to like bounce back very quickly. So those are the kind of things we'll look at. Of course, there are other factors. I'm
Right.
just highlighting those that are, I suppose, relevant in this time,
Yeah.
in this kind of circumstances.
So it's the
The,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
the other thing I wanted to say is for the new funds, I will say this. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag because it's still being developed. The SOPs, etc., objectives of the grant and all that. So it's still subject to approval. But what I will say is for those looking for funding in future, I mean post COVID, post MCO, or as soon as we launch our thing in late May, is that it's not going to be business as usual anymore. You can't come to us, or I cannot say the word can't, but I can say you shouldn't expect to be funded if you're just going to do another iteration of an existing business model,
Right.
those kind of things. It You have to be you for you to have the best chance, you should be looking at what's happening today and what kind of innovations that Malaysia needs to address the challenges we're facing today. Because I cannot. This is one of the impacts of COVID-19 and MCO is that I cannot go forward and forget all this happened. So I will be informed by our experiences today. So
I
in other
see.
words, we're thinking innovations that will have social, environmental impacts. Think SDGs, or is it SGDs? Social. I can, sorry, I digress. But basically, real solutions for real problems. Pollution, our healthcare system. How do we make it better? Transport, energy security, food security, things like that. So we'll be looking forward to see those kind of things as opposed to more e-commerce platforms, because we already know that e-commerce platforms work to some extent, but then it it doesn't have that complete resilience that you require. Things like contactless, completely contactless sort of payment systems, those would be the ones that we'll be looking at, because
I
those
see.
are the ones that we need today. Automation, perhaps, robotics, AI in the context of understanding how people move and move from towns, transport, logistics, healthcare, of course. Those who do rapid testing. I mean, we didn't have any, or we have very few, and we're so dependent on Korean, Japanese, Chinese tests that we have to buy. These are the things
Mm.
that COVID-19 has shown where the weaknesses are.
Mm.
Where just-in-time production, or where production facilities are are so far away and so remote or something like that. You need to bring it closer. You can't do just in time anymore. You need to have that resilience, things like that. I think for those who are looking for funding, should be looking at those kind of innovation.
Okay, so those of you who are interested to start up to have your own startup companies soon, so this is good news for you. There are new fresh funds coming in, according to Razif. Yeah, and
Yep.
just three key areas for you to look at, especially not just these three, but mostly financial plan, the team that comprise in your startup company, and of course the sector you are in. Yeah, focusing on science, technology, and innovation. The STI, as what Razif has mentioned earlier on. Dato, just a quick one for you to address by Shannon Boo here. There are a lot of F&B companies, excluding hotels, requesting fund for in this period. Based on OCBC's experience, are there a lot of F&B companies applying for this relief fund?
There are
Just a quick,
some, but not that many.
not that many, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the last piece of advice from the two of you, yeah. What would you advise everyone here? And especially, what do you expect of the Malaysian economy if the MCO is only lifted by the end of the year, for example? I don't think so and hope not to. But if that really happens, yeah, what is your expectation on the economy and your last advice, please? Dato, you first?
Okay. I think we should plan for the worst. Like I say, plan that even if MCO is lifted, it will be gradual. So you have to change all those things that you are so used to. That means the BAU don't apply anymore. But always be optimistic, because I think if you're a businessman, you have your employees. If you're pessimistic, many of them are going to be very badly hit, because your pessimism will uh, cause you to make certain decisions involving them. So I think if I could say that all crises do have a so-called end life, and some of the crises also create situations where things perhaps allows it to flourish. I mean, I just want to share something that maybe for many years, I think we've been on the economic treadmill. Everybody is running very hard. Everything is so hyper competitive, and we are just out there so much. It's been at a real cost to the environment. If you look at what some of the worries that the world has been before the crisis was climate change. As you can see, the climate and the environment has been healing. Of course, it comes at a very huge economic cost, but ultimately, I think there's a healing process for the environment while everybody sort of stayed at home. And when you stay at home, you to a certain extent, sometimes you also build relationships, you learn new skills, you do things that you never thought of before. So I think we want to tell people to be optimistic. Money is important, but it's not everything. Use the crisis and don't waste it to learn something out of it. If you're a businessman, do learn it, use it to transform your business. And at the same time, if you're a student or somebody else, learn something because you never have this kind of experience before. Thank you.
Okay. Razif, your last thoughts to share with everyone?
I guess it's to build resilience. I think one thing that this has taught us is everybody wishes that they were more resilient. I think
Mm.
being prepared. I think there are a lot of things that we can learn from COVID-19. It could be COVID-20 or something in the future. So let's be prepared. Stronger balance sheets. If you can, your ability to cut your operating costs. That flexibility. Where to do it. How create that opportunity. What else? Flexible value chain so that you can switch from different supply according to demand situation as it changes. You are able to switch around things. Those kind of things, I think. Resilience. If you build it into your business, it will probably help you even if that you don't escape it completely, but it will make you help you probably experience survive it better, I suppose, in a better current sort of condition. Yeah, that would be my
Oh,
last. Yeah.
okay, great. Thank you so much for our two panelists here for the so there you go, the some of the key advice and last say from our panelists here. So these are just the credits to the sources used in this session here. Just to let you know. So the next session here today, we have been listening to Dato Ong and Razif as well. A lot of things we talk about business change and mindset change as well required for you to change your business model, for example, and how can you be more resilient. So therefore, the next session that we're going to have on this Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m., we are focusing on faith and mindset in that case. Yeah. So in the past 4 SME survival kit, we have been highlighting a lot of hardcore in terms of skills. So the fifth session that we're going to have, it will be looking into more on the soft side of our inner side of individuals here. We talk about faith and mindset. And for that, we have 2 panelists as well on WebEx as well. We have Dato Dr. Daniel Ho, the founding senior pastor of DUMC, and also Professor Dr. Arfa Saleh, the CEO and co-founder of Human Governance Incorporation, Institute Incorporation. Yeah. So please join me on this Sunday again to look into the different perspective of how SME owners you can survive through this difficult time here. Okay. Do follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channel on UOW KDU. And if you have any question, you can always email or WhatsApp us at this number. Okay. If you have any question that you want to further highlight on this session, you can address it to me. I'm Dr. Brian here through this email or WhatsApp number again. Okay. So thank you very much for your attention and for attending this session this evening here, and appreciate a lot on our 2 panelists, Dato Ong and also Razif Aziz, to share your thoughts here together with us. Thank you so much and good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.